The Atlanta spa shootings have sparked a national debate over whether to label the murders as hate crime. But while most of the victims were women of Asian descent, police say the shooting spree doesn't appear to be racially motivated. I have Brigida Santos joining me now to talk about it. Brigida, many people in the Asian community just disagree with the police's assessment that the murders were not motivated by race. Why do they believe the killings should be labeled a hate crime? Why is that issue out there? It seems pretty obvious to me, but what is your take on it?
Sure. Well, police department statistics reveal that anti-Asian hate crimes have increased roughly 150% since the start of the pandemic. The rise coincides with political rhetoric. During the pandemic, several politicians have referred to COVID-19 as the, quote, China virus or the Kung flu. And in recent years, the mainstream political and media establishment has villainized China over its expanding role in global trade. Because of all these factors, many people in the Asian community don't see the Atlanta shooting as a random attack. The gunman targeted Asian-owned massage parlors, not other businesses, and 6 of his 8 victims were women of Asian descent. It's no secret that Asian women have long been fetishized. So the Asian American community wants the murders recognized as a hate crime, particularly so anti-Asian hate crimes start getting prosecuted and so additional prison time can be added to the shooter's sentence if he's convicted per a new Georgia law. But hate crime charges, unfortunately, are rarely issued in crimes against Asian American victims because establishing racist motive against people of Asian descent is very difficult. The symbols aren't as clear as they are when you're labeling anti-Semitic, anti-gay, or anti-black hate crimes, for example.
Well, they're trying to make it sound like it's just Southern bubbas that are just doing all the hate, which is so far from the truth. All you have to do is go to San Francisco and see that it's real there. I mean, they may not think it's real in Georgia, but it's real in different parts of the country where it's totally connected to what you would call hate crimes. Religious fundamentalism is being examined as a possible motive. I'm not seeing that quite so clearly. What can you tell me about that?
Well, the suspect has confessed to the killings, and he told police that he carried out the crimes to eliminate the temptation that he perceived from female employees at the massage parlors. And the church he belonged to, Crabapple First Baptist, strictly prohibits premarital sex, and the gunman reportedly suffered from deep shame over his repeated failures to control his sexual urges. He took efforts to stay pure, like blocking porn websites from his computer, but ultimately he slipped and visited massage parlors regularly for sex. The gunman told a roommate that he felt suicidal after sinning and said that his salvation was at stake. He was later treated for sex addiction at an evangelical rehab facility. And ex-evangelicals have long talked about the dangers of purity culture, which places the responsibility of male purity on women. Some ex-evangelicals have even likened purity culture to a form of sexual abuse because it teaches people that their bodies belong to someone else and that if they give in to temptation, the consequences could be death or an eternity in hell.
Yeah, that seems like a little bit of a stretch, but one thing that is not a stretch in this case, that to me, if I'm prosecuting the case, the thing I'm going to open the trial with is the fact of the T-shirts, where there's T-shirts connecting China to 9/11 that he was wearing around. He was advertising these T-shirts. Isn't that where this begins? I think sometimes the media gets so much in the weeds that they miss the point. The T-shirts tell the story, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, this goes back to political rhetoric, talking badly about China and blaming them entirely for the virus and calling it the Kung flu.
Brigida, what I think is most important, it's one of the important parts of this case, is that the policeman who said this was not a hate crime, he was actually producing T-shirts that had to do with the relationship between China and COVID. I think he was actually manufacturing and selling these T-shirts on his website. So you wonder, this is the guy that concluded no hate here. I think that's an important point. How has the church responded to these murders?
Yeah, the Crabapple First Baptist Church has expelled the gunmen, and they say that the shootings were a total repudiation of their faith and practice, and that such actions are completely unacceptable and contrary to the gospel. They also make it a point to blame the gunmen solely, not the women that he was allegedly targeting and asking for sex.
As this goes forward, what do you see? Do you see this? There's some folks out there that are saying that all this attention to the Asian hate crime part of it is going to actually fuel the problem. What's your take on that?
I don't think it will fuel the problem. The problem is already there. As you said, in San Francisco, here in Los Angeles as well, we've seen an incredible uptick in crimes against Asian Americans. So I don't think that's going to fuel it. It's already there. It's good that it's raising awareness about the issue, unfortunately, in such a tragic way.
Brigida, thank you for joining me, okay? And finally tonight, some good news. 4 states have joined together on a fracking ban near Delaware River, and I have Farron Cousins back to talk about it. Okay, here's the fracking industry saying, look, we have all this science. We know it doesn't hurt anybody. This is fracking that is putting toxins in the Susquehanna River, where we ask the question, what are the toxins? And they say, we don't have to tell you. It's moving into the drinking water that serves more than 1 million people up and down the Susquehanna River. What's your take on this story?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about potentially at least 1 million people being poisoned if fracking was allowed in this area. And thankfully, you have these 4 states, Pennsylvania, New York, Jersey, and Delaware, came together and said, listen, let's all agree that nowhere along this Delaware River basin are we going to allow any fracking. They did it. It's wonderful, but we have to go further than this, right? I mean, you don't have any major party other than, I guess, the Green parties who have banning fracking as a part of their platform. This form of energy is, according to some reports, actually dirtier than coal throughout its entire lifespan. And a lot of it has to do with all of the toxins going into the ground that we don't even know about. We know there's diesel fuel. We know there's all kinds of carcinogens, but we don't even know the extent.
One thing we do know, we've seen the movie Gasland, right?
Right.
Where water's coming out of a spigot and they're able to set the water on fire. Now, that is what is happening, whether these folks with whether the industry wants to admit it or not. People aren't stupid. They've seen it firsthand. The trouble is these folks have pumped so much money into the politicians up around that area. The industry, the energy industry has pumped so much money into these politicians. To get them to do this, it's a big, big accomplishment.
Absolutely.
Farron, thanks for joining me, okay?
Thank you.